The future belongs to people who dare to dream, who dare to hold hands. France, 1843.
Six little women in times of old, moved by a call from a voice above, found mighty power in holding hands, laws of faith and plums of courage.
On August 14th, 6 peasant girls at Cantaus, a little hamlet in France, found themselves inspired by a divine call while sitting together on a staircase sharing loaves and plums. Sharing leads to communion. Consequently, they began praying and living together, and great was their happiness to be in communion. In retrospect, we grasp that they were laying the foundation for the congregation of St. Joseph of Tarbes. They took St. Joseph as their patron and began right where they were, in the diocese of Tarbes.
6 little women in candles of old sat sharing dreams from deep within, found mighty power in sharing meals, laws of faith and plums of courage.
Coming together was only the beginning. The founders and the first sisters were tested by time. Deadly cholera raged in several parts of France from 1854 and 1855. These courageous women cared for, nursed, and saved many lives, and at times even buried the destitute dead with dignity. Many sisters lost their lives too.
Flocks of sisters from near and far, loud being more and doing more.
1882, India. In May, 5 sisters arrived in India. They started with their services at Boring Hospital, Bangalore. In 1898, a fatal plague broke out in Mysore, taking a heavy toll on lives. The Sisters of St. Joseph's of Tarbes served those stricken with the disease, selflessly displaying undaunted courage and untiring zeal. This exemplary service inspired and drew many more young women to join the society, to serve people, and thus serve God.
Found mighty power in God and work, loaves of faith and plums of courage.
The sisters grew in number and spread around the world. India, France, Spain, Austria, England, Venezuela, Peru, Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, Kenya, Ecuador, Uganda, Congo, and Malawi saw the influence of the sisters.
There is nothing more satisfying than giving oneself in the service of the other. The joy in the eyes of God is you and me. And the joy in our hearts is the love that we have for others as God loves us. This is the truth of all that we do.
Jyotinivas College Autonomous is a good example. It has molded and given a new lease of life to thousands and thousands of young women with great fidelity to the motto of Jyotinivas College, "Let your light shine." The sisters of the Society of St. Joseph of Tarbes have worked tirelessly with faith in God, refreshing and reinventing according to the changing times and catering to the needs of the people, never losing hold of their vision and mission, striving forward with passion and competence. Sisters live in communities, in fruitful communion, sharing loaves of faith and plums of courage. They spend time in prayer, study, and productive labor, and spread the same zeal to young women who dare to walk their path.
Living and loving communion, praying and learning and dare to.
I request the participants to switch on your camera. So we'll have an interactive session. Thank you. Good morning to one and all. As we begin our session, we seek the blessings of our Almighty. The most beautiful way to start and end the day is with a grateful heart. I take this opportunity to thank our beloved principal, Dr. Sister Lalita Thomas, for giving us this platform to enrich our knowledge base and evolve. Gratitude to the organizing team for bringing together this online FDP. On behalf of the organizing team, I extend a warm welcome to all the participants on day 5 of the online faculty development program. To have a brief recap, we began with Dr. Roberts' session on pedagogy and learning and got familiar with Bloom's taxonomy on day 1 and 2. Remember the Kahoot sessions? On day 3, we learned the essentials of writing skills for academic research from Dr. Parul Sharma. Hope you remember the mentioning of hilarious sentence formation, women in frozen tank. We realized how important patenting is with respect to academic research through insights from Ms. Bindu Sharma. Again, remember diaper for birds. Need for data entry and presentation skills were lucidly explained to us by Dr. Rajesh Dharmaraj and Ms. Bella Thomas on day 4. We have now reached day 5. Today, we promise to take you through an area of discussion of much importance in today's world. The first session, Bridging the Skill Gap Between Academia and Industry, will be presented by Mr. Victor Sundararaj, Head Engineering Academy, Infosys. For the second session on course outcome mapping, our resource person is Mr. Sailesh Prabhakar Kasande, CEO and Group Director, Suryadatta Group of Institutes, Pune, assuring you an enriching session. Now I invite Ms. Satya, faculty member, Department of English, to introduce our first speaker for today. Both the sessions today will be moderated by Ms. Salome Jacob. Thank you. Over to Satya.
Good morning. We have an eminent resource person, Mr. Victor Sundar Raj, amidst us for the first session. A master's degree holder in aerospace engineering from IIT Chennai, Mr. Sundar Raj has more than 2 decades of experience in engineering education and competency development at corporate and academics. He has been spearheading organizational level enablement programs on digital mastery and has also been a part of research advisory board and board of studies in various engineering institutions. At present, he is the head of engineering and emerging technologies academy at Infosys, designing and developing competency and role-based continuous education programs. Today, he'll be enlightening us on the topic Bridging the Skill Gap Between Academia and Industry. It's a pleasure to have you here, sir. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible clearly.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Somebody please confirm if you're able to see my screen.
Hello. So we can hear you.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I think we're able to see. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Very good morning and Happy New Year to all of you. It's my pleasure and honor to interact with all of you today. Thank you for that crisp introduction. Thank you for the invite, organizing team. I mean, I'm planning to share from our own experiences of what we have been doing internally. So I'll keep it crisp and short. 3 aspects I will cover instead of being prescriptive and sharing something, as a concept. What I thought is I'll first share with you what we are doing internally, right, and how we are doing internally. I think that is, I mean, the first and the foremost thing I'll share with all of you from our own practices, our own examples of how we reimagined education internally within Infosys, and being part of the Infosys education team. That's the first thing that I will share with you. And second, towards bridging this industry and academia gap, what Infosys is doing, right? I'm sure, I think some of you would have heard of Infosys Springboard initiatives. We had Infosys Campus Connect in the past. We have Infosys Instep program, which is for the global students. So what Infosys is doing in this particular initiative of bridging the academia and industry gap, I think that is something I will share as a next agenda. And third one is, I think we can probably, I think based on whatever we have heard, I'll just try to summarize and then add on top of it what else, what more can be done from different stakeholders' point of view. So those are the three things that I have for you. Feel free to post your questions. I hope, I think I'll be able to see the chat and get to see your questions, or we'll reserve some time towards the end, last 15 minutes for our own interaction. So I'll try to cover in these four parts. Well, to start with, as I said, I think I will start with the Infosys story and what we are doing internally. So as you look at it, I think our own scenario internally and the needs, to a large extent, you can say that it's an university which is operating internally, right, but aligned inside an industry, inside an enterprise. Right? How we align ourselves and meet the talent needs or the competency development needs within Infosys, right, is what I'm going to share as a first thing. If you look at it, these are different challenges or different scenarios, and the current trend or the current the business models that are driving us internally. So to start with, I'm sure all of us will agree, right? The last 10 years has seen so much of emergence of new technologies, right? Every month, right? Every week, in fact, new tools, new technologies are coming up, and it's really becoming a challenge for both employees as well as engineers to keep pace with those challenges. In fact, I think if I go back to some of those analysts predictions and analysts estimations, right, they say close to about 75 to 80% of employees who are, I mean, in the enterprises and industries, right, are to be prepared for the future skills, right. That's something which is alarming, in number. They are not ready for the future, right, if I have to put it in simple words. And the second other aspect is, I think one of the other analysts say close to about 70% of engineers, right, who are in any industries, right, or predominantly the engineering, ITS industry, they say whatever skills they are having, they are yet not specialist in those skills, right. They are still probably at a basic or an intermediate level. They have not yet had the time or the resources to specialize, call themselves as a kind of a specialist. So they're just wavering around the top layers of those technologies. So, I mean, adding to that challenges, many new things, that are coming up every day, every week, and every month, right? So that we need to cope up with those technologies and enable. That's number one. Number two, again, from the enterprise point of view, different customers have different expectations, right? And there are customers who are looking for support of companies in their own digital transformation. They do not know anything about it, and we'll be their kind of a mentor and helping them navigate in their digital transformation journey. But on the other hand, right, there are customers who are actually digital natives, right? And they know in and out of what digital, what technology is all about, right? How do we deal with those customers as well? Because there are a lot of business potential which they have, where they need supporting hands to implement, to develop things, and put things in place. So we need to deal with both. On one side, getting enabling them and guiding them, mentoring them, and developing systems for them. On the other hand, you need to show your own mettle, your own competence to deal with people who are already experts, and then support them in their own journey, right? So that requires a different level of competencies. And adding on top of it, if you look at it, I think there are obviously, I think, a lot of cost pressures and competitions, new ways of delivery models, right? And new ways of working. Fortunately, unfortunately, I think we are now into this pandemic has actually switched the different ways of working models. Even otherwise, if you look at it, I think Infosys, in fact, NRN was the pioneer in establishing what we call it as a global delivery model, right? Where a smaller set of team will be at client position, right? Either at at other geography location, US or Europe or Japan or any other locations, where they'll be interacting with the customers, getting to know their needs and requirements, right? And pass it on to the teams which are in offshore, right? Where the talent is available in plenty, as well as can work out on a kind of a most optimum cost model, right? So that's a global delivery model. We used to call it as a on-site, offshore models. But recently, I think those kind of models have also changed, right? Where what we call it as, in fact, within Infosys itself, we said on-site, onshore, and offshore models. Where the onshore got introduced newly, which is to build the talent pool and recruit local employees in different geographies as well, right? And establish offices in those places as well. So different talent models, different delivery models or have emerged due to various reasons, right? Geopolitical reasons, visa challenges, right? And of course, every country wants to improve the employability of their own nationals and locals. So that's led to different delivery models, and of course different ways of working which we are experiencing now, in terms of how we can work virtually, in a digital way, and still able to collaborate well and work as a team and deliver. These are different things which as we see, things which have been running us, which have been driving us, which have been at the forefront, where we need to build talents, build engineers, build professionals who can actually work in all of these scenarios in addition to their core skills what they have. And as we see, I think post-COVID, it's still not post-COVID, right? We are still going through that. That has also, brought in different scenarios and different challenges, right? Starting from how you can build resiliency in your own business, right? Of course, each of our own customers are going through their own challenges. There are many companies who are shutting down for different challenges, right? And different talent models are evolving, right? More and more of we start hearing about gig workers, right? And that's the the preference of the current day generation also, right? They don't want to stick to one company, right? They want different opportunities. And of course, I think there are very few now focusing on the monetary benefits. There are people who are looking for challenging roles and challenging jobs, right? If they are not getting what they want, they're free to move. And this concept of gig workers is also something which is which is booming, right? We see the same. And of course, I think the same existing talent is also being attracted and moving across different industries, right? And also, I think the future of work is something where we see, I think, because of technology adoption, right? More and more people will have to work within teams, within people will have to work with machines, right? So different ways of models, hybrid work models, as well as digital work models are evolving. And all these things necessitate a different change management, different mindset, right? Which needs to be very smoothly imbibed in the organizations, right? Without disrupting the current operating scenarios. And more, ESG, sustainability, right? Governance and all these things are becoming a need of the hour for any enterprise. So we'll have to work within this. This is the scenario within which we have been working. I think many of these things I've just covered as we speak. So work, right? Different ways of different technologies are coming into play, right? So that necessitates different skills. and workspaces, right? Intelligent, smart workspaces, working with machines, physical, digital, what we call as a phygital, experiences are actually becoming more and more, and different workforce concepts, different workforce mechanisms are actually coming into play, like the marketplace or the gig economy. And also the skill in itself is taking its own transformation. From, we used to call it as a one specialization, now we are calling it as what we call it as a full stack developer, having multiple specializations. And also people who are able to unlearn, learn, and then relearn. So that kind of a Z shaped concept of skill development is also something which is becoming the need of the hour. So these are different things which as a transformation which is happening across the industries. And if you look at it, Infosys had its own focus on education since inception. Last 3 to 4 decades, we had our own establishment of global education centers, which is our signature campus at Mysore, where we could train about 14,000 engineers at any given point in time. And similarly, all the continuous education programs to happen across our development centers, where we can train anytime about 5 to 6,000 at any of our campuses, large campuses. So there was a utmost importance and significance given to employee talent development, especially at Infosys. And reskilling is also one of our pillars of our strategy, which again emphasizes the importance of competency development given by the organization. And all of this was actually shaken now last year, when we have to vacate our own campuses, right? So we were always proud of what we used to do at Mysore, but within couple of within a week, we need to evacuate all our 10,000 trainees at there, right? And because our leaders have actually reimagined education and developed our own digital platforms, where we can enable employees through self-paced learning, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous learning, we're able to quickly move across and continue business as usual for our own training development. So we had this again, I just wanted to take a few minutes just to highlight, right? This is the way we have reimagined education internally. We always used to have about 70% of instructor trainings or a classroom trainings, and 30% of e-learning or a self-paced learning about 5 6 years ago. And all of these learnings were actually restricted to the campuses, right? I mean, not only the campuses, even virtually, when they have to access, go through the VPN, go through the intranet, and then can access any learning, right? But with our own live enterprise transformation that we have gone about internally, we wanted to make it internet friendly, right? Internet first, mobile first, right? So that's a kind of a mandate Nandan has actually thrown to us when he has took over the helm as a chairman 3 to 4 years ago. So we have redefined our own digital learning based on these four core tenets, what we call it as making learning convenient, making it relevant, making it fun, and making it matter, right? Again, as I say and talk about digital learning, do not think that I'm demeaning or I'm deprioritizing the instructor training. So that is also gaining importance, right? So if you look at it, it's a kind of a cycle, right? People said, okay, only the effective is the instructor learning, and then people said to scale up, you need to have this digital platforms. The cycle is actually coming back and saying, okay, we need those experiences, we need those expert interactions, right? How it can be amplified through the digital means is something that we are trying to do here. So as we speak here, so the first thing, making learning convenient, when we say convenient, is to facilitate learning anytime, anywhere, on any device, right? Online and offline, right? Many of our own the learners current day, I think we need to put ourselves in the learner's shoes, right? The Gen Zs or Gen Alphas, what we see in our classrooms today, right? So what they want, right? How they want to learn is something which is very, very important, rather than how we want to teach and what we teach, right? So that putting learner in the center is something which is very, very important, and helping them to learn anytime, anywhere, any device, and providing the same kind of experience which they want to learn, right? So they're used to, I'm sure, I think the learners that we have in our classrooms are in our own kids, whom we see at home, who are addicted and who are, I mean, when I say addicted to the games, addicted to different means of experiences, personalization, right? Pampering at home. All of those things are something which the current day generation is actually going through. How do we fulfill their needs and achieve our own objective is something I think we need to really look at, right? That's where, not only the convenience aspect, how we can engage them is something which is very, very important. That's what we covered in the third point, making it fun, right? How we can provide them an environment where they can practice, how we can enable social collaboration between the learners, right? How we can take advantage of their own, what do you say? I'm again, regretting to use the word addiction, right? They're addicted to the games. How we can introduce gamified environments for learning, right? And promote learning through those gamified aspects and technologies is something, which is a need of the hour. And the second part is, how do we make it relevant, right? People have access to everything, right? If you leave our kids open, the learners open, they go to Google and they can find and learn anything on their own, right? But at the same time, how do we actually help them to personalize? How do we help them to curate and then provide the best learning experiences and contents to them is something which is going to be the role of the educators or the role of the platform. And last but not the least, now the platform, what we have reimagined is something which is enabled with technologies, open source, where we are able to see who is learning what and able to consolidate and provide those dashboards and visualizations to the leadership team, to drive the learning effectively within the organization. So these are the four core tenets, based on which we have reimagined learning. And because we had these platforms in place, we were able to sustain seamlessly through this disruption, through this pandemic, and we are still continuing our own. Of course, I think all of us, right? So have got used to the digital means of teaching and learning, and we are continuing our business as usual. But this is something which we have done internally, and which has actually helped us immensely, right? As we speak today, when we introduced this platform 3.5 years ago, we said if only about 2,000 of our employees come to the platform and learn, we would have achieved our objectives. But as we speak, we see close to about 25,000 to 28,000 employees come to the platform on a daily basis and learn, which is a significant number than what we have actually visualized. At the same time, we also see our own engineers coming and learning through the platform, because it is anytime, anywhere, on any device. We also see people learning during the weekends, which was actually a pleasant surprise for all of us. We see close to about 8,000 to 10,000 of our people come and learn, on the platform even during the weekends, right? And we see people even learning at the odd hours, right? Everybody has their own style of working. Everybody has their own planning of their own day and availability and so on. Because it's available digitally, you see people using it at their own convenience, and adoption becomes more and more through these digital means, right? So this is something which has helped us, where we have reimagined ourselves and brought in this digital technologies and learning, which has actually helped us to scale up and sustain during this pandemic as well. Another aspect, again, this is to provide you a complete view of what we do at Infosys as an education department. We have these three structured initiatives. The first one is reskilling and continuous education of our own existing employees of 300,000, 280,000 to 280,000 to 300,000 employees whom we have, facilitating their continuous learning, helping them to continuously upgrade themselves, reskill themselves, upskill themselves, right? Specialize themselves into different skills, right? Getting into from if they have to get promoted from one role to another role, or they are willing to move from different career streams, say for example from a delivery stream to a consulting stream, or from a delivery stream to a architecture or a technology stream, right? What kind of skilling programs, what kind of additional skills which they need to acquire, is something which is being facilitated through this reskilling and continuous education opportunities, in addition to fulfilling aspiration of some of the employees who wants to do their higher education, are all part of this continuous education program. And second aspect is our foundation program, which is, I'm sure, I think will be very helpful for you as I go into the details in the next couple of slides, right? Where how we bridge the gap between academia and industry here. Foundation program is our entry-level training program for all the graduate engineers or for all the newbies, whom we recruit. We put them through a structured, 16 weeks to 20 weeks of program. Now it's all happening virtually. Erstwhile, we used to do it as a residential training program at Mysore. So how do we do that, right? What kind of courses, what kind of a teaching pedagogies, we follow in the foundation program is something I'm sure I think will be helpful for all of you as well. And the third initiative is our Campus Connect initiatives. As I said, we have a Campus Connect program, which was launched almost about 20 years ago, where we used to offer industry offered electives and conduct faculty development programs on specific topics, right, including pedagogies to technology related courses, where we design the content, curriculum, and also the materials, and we enable the faculty, and faculty will go back and deliver in the classes in their own institutions. And of course, some institutions used to do it as a value added courses, and some institutions used to include it as part of the curriculum, taking the board of studies approvals and try to implement. And we had again, as I was saying in the beginning, we had the InStep program, which is a global internship program where we used to get interns from abroad. I'm just sharing it as an information. It is one of the world's best program to get those interns, where they get to see the Infosys culture, work with an Infosys mentor on different project problems. It could be technical, it could be management, or it could be study of industry, right? Different things that happens as part of the InStep internship program. And a couple of years back, we had launched a platform called as InfiTQ, which is our own recruitment platform, right? So where there are some learning contents, as well as time to time there are certification programs that happens on the InfiTQ platform, where anybody who is interested for job opportunities in at Infosys can go to that platform and start learning, as well as taking up those certifications, which will give them opportunity to sit through the Infosys selection process as an off-campus initiatives. And very recently, we have launched Infosys Springboard. I'll talk some more in details towards the end. So this is the holistic view of what are the different initiatives that we do internally. Now I'm coming to the part of how we do it, right? So this is, I'm sure, I think will be a good learning and sharing for all of you. As we started our own reimagining education, right? This is what we continue to focus, and this is what we do every time, right? We look at what skills are relevant. This is putting our own shoes in employees, right, from our engineers perspective, right? So what skills are relevant for me, me as an engineer, me as an employee, me as a learner, right? And what support do I get to learn? Where and when can I learn, right? What is the motivation for me? I think this is a big question, right? So why should I learn? Is a very sharp question and a straightforward question, which comes from the learner, right? Well, not all of them will be there in the same scenario. Some of them will be their own self starters and will learn on their own, right? Some of them needs to be mandatorily enabled, right, to sustain their job, right? So you see stark difference between different learners, different engineers within the organization, right? What is the motivation? Some people will say, they will have, it will be a self-starter and want to learn, want to keep up with the technology and will learn on their own. But some people will need a stick approach. Some people will need a carrot approach, right? So you complete this, right? Probably you'll be eligible for promotion, right? You don't complete this, you are part of the performance improvement process. This is something which is mandatory for you because you have so much of lapses in your own deliverables and in your own performance, right? So different means and ways work for different engineers, different learners, right? What and why do I need to learn? and how this will shape up my future career, right? And I'm learning, fine, where do I get to apply, right? What are those opportunities, that we as a learning department make available for those learners in addition to their own jobs? Where else, say for example, if somebody is really interested, want to learn AI, right? Say want to learn blockchain, right? Where they do not have an immediate opportunity in their project to apply, right? But if they learn and then if they don't use it, they will very soon forget, right? Which is a very reasonable question from the learners, right? But how do we provide such opportunities for them where they can apply some of these aspects, right? And also keep the learning what they have done relevant, and if they don't apply, it's very obvious that they will forget very soon. How do we provide such opportunities within the organization, right? In addition to their own project management, how they can actually apply. So we have many such initiatives, for the employees. And again, different questions of, I'm fine, okay, you are teaching me through the instructor-led classes, right? How do I practice, right? And of course, it's very, very important in the current days, right? How do we establish those virtual labs, right? Environments where they can practice what they want to learn. And we also see the other extreme, right? And say, I'm acquired so much of skills, through the project or through interaction with my client, or by developing different technologies and different software and systems for my clients. I have so much of wealth I want to share, right? How can I teach? How can I contribute? So these are the different questions, different expectations from the employees, engineers point of view, right? We often go back to these questions and see, evaluate ourselves, and are we looking at all of these scenarios, how we can improve, right? So this is one perspective from the engineers point of view. And we ourselves, again, as our own self introspection and review and audit internally, right? We have our own set of goals from the educators, from the education leadership point of how do we anticipate, right? What are those future talent needs, right? And how do we put mechanisms in place to meet those business needs, right? How we can have a predictable engine in terms of, okay, how many engineers are required on this particular topics, right? So whether it is 1,000 or is it 2,000, right? How do we have those predictability in the demand projections, right? And at the same time, right, so we'll have to balance the aspirations of customers, aspirations of the industry, right? Aspiration of the leaders, aspiration of the individuals, right? In terms of what they want to learn and how do they want to learn, right? And how all of these things we can do it at a scale, right? So that's where the digital platforms actually has come as a rescue for us. Not only that, we also introspect and take the guidance from the leaders in terms of what are their expectations, right? In terms of and their guidance, right? Across different aspects of from the change management to what organization wants to drive. So, for example, about 6 to 8 years ago, we had a drive, for design thinking. Every engineer in the organization needs to be enabled on design thinking, right? Which predominantly emphasizes not just focusing on the solutions, right? Focusing first on the problem, redefining it, defining it, right? And being empathetic and putting ourselves in the shoes of the customers and the needy to first of all define the problems in an appropriate way, and then start thinking about what is possible and how the solutions can be developed, right? So we did that design thinking for all employees. And again, a few years back, we did another massive drive for enabling all our engineers on agile, right, as a method, because that is something which was becoming the need of the hour. All organizations were used to the water flow model of project management and project execution, right? But the entire landscape of execution and project delivery changed into agile model. So we wanted to enable everyone in the organization, right? And recently, we had two other initiatives where enabling everyone on cloud, right? So this is something which was done just last year, and along with that, AI for everyone, right? So these are different initiatives which the leadership team wants to drive within the organization, right? What are their mandates? How do they see? How do they want to visualize and drive the learning effectively within the organization is something the leadership, looks at it, right? So these are different, we look at it from the different stakeholders point of view. And also, if you look at it, I think education is not just teaching the concept, right? So we look at it when that's why we just don't call it as a knowledge. We don't call it as a skill. We call it as competence, right? Competence actually encompasses all these three aspects of education. You teach them the concepts, right? And you also make them experience. That's where they try to apply, they try to practice, right, whatever they are learning. I think that's the experience part of it. And the most important part is how it can be applied, how people have actually used it, provide that kind of an exposure where they can test in the real time, right, the problems, the projects, right, or the case studies, or mentoring by the experts. So all of these things is what encompasses the overall holistic competency development. One of the pedagogy approach that we have practiced ourselves is what you see at the bottom, right? In terms of our own teaching methodologies and our foundation program courses and our foundation program curriculum is actually based on these approaches. So, for example, safety and failure tolerance threshold, customer centricity, systemic thinking, collaboration, apprenticeship. So these are the different what do you say, the nitty-gritties of the curriculum development at a foundation level. When I say safety and failure tolerance, so there are multiple things there. What does it mean here is you have different learners, you have different people, right? There are some people who will be restricted to only, okay, what you teach and what they have to do, right? They will do, execute, and get out, right? And there are some people who are really inquisitive to learn further and do further. How do you identify such talents is what the safety and failure tolerance aspect is, right? You first establish those user stories which mandatorily to be developed, and apart from that you also put additional challenges and user stories, kind of a nice to have, or beyond the mandatory ones, right, which some people will be able to pick it up. I mean, that will actually satisfy those hungry souls, right, who wants to do more and wants to learn more, right? That's the safety and failure aspect. And systemic thinking is again something which is interesting, right? Maybe I think sure some of you would have experienced it as part of the project-based learning or so. Instead of just teaching, right, some of the languages or some of the technologies, right, starting from the syntax, right, you first throw open and give them a big scenario in terms of how an application works, right? Say for example, for teaching a programming language of Akka Scala, right, we said we have given them a platform or an application which was developed out of that, and we asked them to first experience, okay, how can you sign up, how can you sign in, right, how can you go into different features and then explore those different features. You give them that scenario to first experience, right? And then you go and teach, okay, you have seen this particular feature, do you know how it is developed? This is the code that works behind them, right? And that's what we call as a deconstruct, right? You deconstruct and then say this is how it was built. Now can you add this particular new feature, right, giving them the problem statement to add and construct something new, which they can add and build on top of this overall application. So that is the systemic thinking. And of course, I mean, other things, how we can give it as a teamwork, right, which is very, very important. There are players who are individual who can do well, but as a team, right, they are not able to share, they are not able to work together. So how we can actually encourage that particular culture. And nowadays it's becoming more and more important, where you have to be, as an individual, you need to prove yourself, your own mettle, your own competence, and at the same time you need to work as a team and bring the team together. And team success is the real success, which people need to realize in the beginning of their career. And those are different aspects, different interventions which are there introduced in the overall curriculum. And at last phase of our own foundation program, we have the projects which are actually directly mentored by the project team leads and managers. They come and they mentor them, and the early alignment happens there so that they are smoothly inducted into those project teams. So these are different models that we follow ourselves. Another interesting thing I just wanted show and share with all of you is not just technology aspect, right? One as they learn the technology, they should know how it is applied in different industries, how it's applied in different products, right? And not only that, how they can actually become a holistic professional by developing the behavioral skills, the professional skills, the business skills, the consulting skills, right? Not just having the idea, how they can actually put themselves in a customer's shoe and then imagine how this technology can be applied there is something which is very, very important as a business skill, right? And ability to follow those processes and systems, and overall become a getting those leadership skills. So all these different dimensions of competency is what we focus as a holistic skill development. And not only that, we have defined this gets actually renewed, revitalized every year, right? In terms of what are our different horizons, right? Horizon of skill development. So first is the core services, right? Our fundamental skills, and what are the skills that are required for a new services, and what is the future services that we are envisioning, and how can we build those skills, right? So it's something which is very important. So some of the things from new services will become a core service next year, right? And some of the emerging things what we are talking about will become a new service next year, right? So that's how the cycle happens, and the horizon 3, which is the emerging technologies, gets replenished with the new ones that are coming into the fore. So we have our own clarity in terms of what are the focus areas and skills that we look at. Another quick thing on how do we develop a content. I'm sure I think all of you will have, okay, it's good that you know how to teach, you know what to teach. Now how do you actually develop the content, right? So this is the kind of a life cycle that we go through, right, internally for developing any courses, right? So we get this initial trigger, right? So go through this cycle of sense, incubate, scale, and industrialize, right? So when we say sense, we get those triggers either from the leadership team or from our own research findings, or our own business needs, right? Give us that kind of an indication. We need a course, or we need to develop skills on these particular areas. And then the second phase is where we collaborate with our own internal research development research team, right? We call it as ICES, Center for Emerging Technology, Infosys Center for Emerging Technologies Services. So that team, is a team which is doing the research on the cutting edge technologies, who is constantly, monitoring. So we collaborate with them and understand, first of all, right, enable our educators on what is this all about, right? And if it is available, we are not limited to only internal. We also reach out to the university. We also reach out to the best of the players outside who can bring in those content. So initial, enablement is something that happens in the next stage. And slowly, we start to develop the 101 courses, right? And we do the train the trainer program internally for employees, and start launching those basic courses, right? And then scale up faster into our own intermediate courses and advanced courses, uh, and scale it up, right, across different learning interventions what we have. So this is the cycle of development what we do, not just with with our educators. Educators themselves also do some research and start their own efforts. Collaborate with the practitioners internally, architects internally is something which is a key for us to get the application, get the applied nature of contents, and then putting our own efforts, following our own regulation of how do we develop the content, and pilot it, launch it, and scale it up. So very quickly, I think we are running out of time. So foundation program, what we do, I think we focus on three aspects here. One is the IT foundation skills, right? Because we recruit across different disciplines, different graduate programs, right? So our first and the foremost thing is to bring everybody onto the same level of fundamentals, right? So starting from the software engineering to understanding of database to understanding the overall process, software development process, is something which is a core one. Along with that, we teach them on those professional skills of design thinking to again, speak up is something which is very, very important because of our own culture, because of our own practices. people don't open up initially, right? Even if they have ideas, right? It's very tough for them to make them speak and share, right? What they want to share, right? So again, enhancing their business communication, both oral and written. Many of them are used to the WhatsApp languages and short forms and so on. How do we actually make them unlearn and then learn those professional ways of, say, writing mails to the communications is something which happens in that workshop, and presentation skills and so on. So this is the first level of what we call as a generic program. And then they get specialized. We offer close to about 40 plus specializations, right, across different technologies. And depending upon the business need, different streams run time to time. And, they get go to the next stage of doing a training project and get mentored and then get released to the project. Of course, we have a structured continuous education approach in terms of the reskilling, right? Account-based training, different specialized programs, streams. All these, are driven through organization goals or market trends, right? Or the feedback from our employees, and as well as employee aspirations, get fulfilled through these programs. And many of these things are not just a single shot programs, right? I'm sure, I think all of you will agree, right? Learning is something which is continuous, right? You start with some macro learning or a full-fledged program, and you get those micro shots, learning bites, or different learning initiatives along the career, right? And then if you want to switch or learn something new, you again go through a refactoring program or a full stack program, and then continue learning, continue practicing your thing. So this is something which is very important the days. Not only that, I think it is also very important, not just we deliver, we also measure the success, we also measure the effectiveness. I heard, you had the workshop on developing the Bloom's taxonomy and measure. I think those are certain things which will lead towards this measuring the effectiveness as well, right? Starting with the immediate reactions, right? I'm sure, I think some of you would be familiar with this Kirkpatrick model, where you start with measuring the immediate feedback, right, from the participants, and then you evaluate the learning through quizzes and assessment, right? And third is measure how are they actually able to apply, right? Get the feedback from the managers and so on. And next two things is something which is tangible and intangible benefits, where you're able to see how this particular the business is actually grown, right? How are they able to be used, right? How did we address those gaps, right? And what is the revenue? What is the bottom line that has got generated because of this? So many of these things, could be a direct measurement, and some of them could be an intangible one, right? Is something, how do we measure? So these are some of our own practices internally. How do we try to measure the overall learning effectiveness? And we are not restricted only to internal means. As I said, now we establish collaboration with best of the best across, right? So have these partnerships for various initiatives across the globe to enhance our own education system internally. And I just want to leave it open to say, we need to be sensitive about the current day learners and what and how they want to learn, right? We as an educators, we are, we are used to know what we want to teach and how we want to teach. But as the quote at the beginning, at the top says, if we teach today as we taught yesterday, then we rob our children of tomorrow. So I think we need to be conscious about many of these things are known to you, right? The digital means, how do we do the social learning, promote and use technology in learning, right? How can we bring in the experiential, real life experiences for the students? Are all something which is a need of the hour, right? Which needs to be facilitated for the learners. I talked about.
Hi, sir. Just
Thank
wondering
you.
if, yeah, there are certain questions that have come up. So you had
Sure.
mentioned around 15 minutes you want to raise questions. So just giving you a heads up that if you
Yeah.
could wind down, it would be nice because there's the other speaker also waiting.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Very briefly, I think there are different skill I talked about, right? So we used to have this T specializations, right, which has now become a kind of a full stack developer to have multiple specializations. I talked about this Z-shaped where, if you have to switch streams, you need to unlearn, learn, and then, relearn is something which is need. And at the same time, what is more important is, looking at the future of learning, right? How we can bring in technology into learning from a smart classroom to cognitive computing, how you can bring in AI, and what is becoming more and more current day is the mixed reality and the immersive experiences in learning. I think we need to keep a tap on those aspects as well. And and coming towards the end, I think towards addressing this gap, Infosys actually launched this Infosys Springboard, which is our own CSR initiative, where we have close to about 4,000 courses, made free and available through this platform for any learners. And there are also live classes, gamified environments, virtual labs, career guidance programs, industry-ready learning paths and certifications are part of this program. Some of you might be aware, and those who are hearing it for the first time, you can explore it through the link that I have put it at the bottom. And the entire university, entire institution can use it as a learning platform as well. Right? So we always draw our information, inspiration from our own, founders, right? So they give utmost importance to the talent. NRN always says people are the first, priority. If you have no people, our book value is zero, right? And Nandan, who is a promoter of open source and the adoption of technologies and digital transformation, he always says uh, everything should be provided by the organization. The only friction for learning for employees should be their own motivation to learn. So that way, I think we are inspired by our founders and leaders to drive the learning. I mean, if I have to just summarize, right? So from the students' point of view, I think their expectation is the applied learning, right? How they can get those industry experience and projects or be it interactions, right? From the faculty point of view, I see, the faculty who are even struggling to operate the digital systems. I think that is something faculty needs to scale up, have mandatory. I mean, that's what we do internally. Every faculty will have to actually complete industry certifications, right? Year after year, cycle after cycle, which becomes part of their own goals, right? So that's something which is needed from the faculty point of view to lead from the front on the technologies. Another one is, I think, a big thing which some of the institutions leverage, some of them have not tapped, is the big resource of alumni that you have to bring them into teaching, bring them into sharing. Mentoring is something which can be leveraged, and of course the management can lead, and from the leadership side of it, drive the digital things, drive the entire goal of reimagining education, in a different way, right? I think if we don't do it, I think somebody else will do it for us. So we need to reimagine. I think that's the need of the hour. I will probably stop here and then see if there are some questions which I can pick it up.
Thank you so much, sir. I think it was quite comprehensive, your whole presentation. A few questions have been raised, and I think you have considerably emphasized on reskilling, unlearning and reskilling as part of an agenda by Infosys. I'm just curious to know how difficult it is for students to once they do join from on completion of the undergraduate program, when they join the Infosys, how much is it that you have to do to unlearn and reskill them? That's one question. And how do you assess that? And curiously, is education, should education only cater to job employment, or should it be comprehensive, or should have other aspects also that need to be addressed? And is it the other aspects that you are unlearning and reskilling the students? That's one question.
Yeah, yeah. So I think thank you for that question. I think I don't think there is any unlearning happens at the initial phase, right? So the unlearning I mentioned is from the context of when somebody actually switches from working from a one industry vertical to another industry verticals, or moving from a outdated technology to something which is the latest, right? So that's where the predominantly what I meant as unlearning happens there, right? And most of the things what we address is adding on top of what the academia has actually built, the foundation, right? So what industry wants. And I think to some extent, I would say I think that is needed, because what it shows is there is a there is always that catch up, which indicates there is a growth in either part, right? So we need to have that shift left strategy. What are those things that becomes a mainstream, can be constantly taken forward at the academic level, and the industries will catch up with the new technologies, and this kind of a bridging the gap will happen constantly, which shows the overall growth, right? And one is those technologies which are essentially required for them to perform on the job, right? The processes, right, which they wouldn't have learned in the academics, is something which is very importantly taught to them. And at the same time, all those professional skills, I'm sure, I think there is a limited opportunity for the engineer, I mean, for the employees to learn in the academic setup, right? Is something what we do as a gap fit at our own foundation programs.
It's just also critical thinking. Is that something that is taken forward by Infosys? And that's a question raised by one of the faculty. Critical
Yes.
thinking is a learning outcome for some subjects over here, particularly the arts. And how do you measure this? And do you really take art students in if they don't have the so-called technical skills to cater to Infosys?
Yeah. Yeah. I think critical thinking, design thinking, innovative thinking. So these are all different aspects, right? Which are the need of the hour, right? But these are not something which are measured at an entry level, right? To recruit somebody, to add someone, right? What is being essentially looked at through the selection processes, how their fundamental is, how their logical reasoning and analytical abilities, problem solving abilities are. And the most important things which is looked at is how is their learnability, right? So how are they showing their interest to learn something, right? Is something what is measured as part of the entry level criteria.
Okay. So another question is a process of education, competence building, reskilling. Um, how do you make an assessment before they are appointed for various jobs in the company, and are there dropouts? So in
Right. Yeah. So when it comes to the dropouts, right? So we had a strict measure of meeting the guidelines, assessment guidelines at our foundation. Even though they get recruited, right? So they go through the foundation program and they're not able to meet a certain criteria of credit points and percentage. They are shown doors, right? So it is very stringently followed in terms of being able to cope up and able to skill themselves, right? So that's very very important for us. And okay, that's for the last part of your question in terms of are there any dropouts. The assessments are at different level. As I said, you have the assessment as part of the foundation program. Every course, every refactoring program, right? In fact, every cycle, performance cycle, people have to actually go through different assessment. It could be competency assessment on technologies, or it could be their own on-the-job assessments. So there are multiple levels they get assessed, and that leads to different things, right? Those who are doing well progress in their career. Those who don't, right, either stagnant or go out. So that's part of the overall process.
yeah, there's something. It's a follow-up question. It says, is personalized competency learning more important in today's environment?
Exactly. I think that's a culture we as parents have taught to our own kids. So they are expecting everything as a personalized one, right? So personalization ability, I mean, giving them the flexibility to curate themselves what they want to learn, and getting that recommendation, right, is something which is becoming the need of the hour. Personalization is definitely one of the must-haves in the current day scenarios.
I think I'll end with this, but the computer science department would definitely want to work with Infosys, and I think to build their skills not just as teachers but also as researchers. So I think if there's any form of collaboration, they would be happy to engage with the institution. Um, Is there
Yeah,
any way
I
that
think we
we
have,
can?
yeah, as I said, the Springboard is an initiative that we have, launched recently, where,
Mhm.
it provides multiple opportunities to collaborate, right?
Okay.
One is the faculty development, or be it, you leveraging the courses there to include it as part of the curriculum, right? Or, guiding institutions on the implementation, sharing of best practices of national education policy, the multiple initiatives that we are coming up as part of the Infosys Springboard initiative. I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for the institutions to grab.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here this morning, sir. And also, like you just mentioned, NEP puts a lot of emphasis on technology and making education accessible for all. But like you mentioned, there's a lot of digital uh, natives that are there that we need to slowly address, be it faculty or students. I think your initiative is quite comprehensive, but whatever you said is quite insightful for all of us. And also, like you mentioned, convenient, how making education convenient, fun, relevant, and making it matter, I think, is something that pretty much hammered home. And so, if there's anything, we hope to contact you and maybe collaborate with you as an institution. And we thank you so much, as from the faculty and non-teaching staff, faculty and the students, student body, and particularly the principal has mentioned, is very grateful that you were here with us today, and we thank you from her behalf too. Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank
Victor Sundaraj sir, and hope to collaborate with you soon again.
thank you for the invite. It's my pleasure to be here and look forward to future interactions. Thank you.
Thank you.
After that extensive and informative session, we move on now to the session two. We have an accomplished academic leader and institution builder, Dr. Sailesh Kasande, as our resource person. He is a PhD holder in marketing management and a professional of extensive experience and passion that shine through his achievements. His approach to leadership and management includes the vision to explore futuristic business growth opportunities and promote organizational citizenship behavior among teams. He has contributed extensively to curriculum development and implementation. Amongst numerous other initiatives, he has conducted over 200 faculty development programs on CBCS and OBE and has been a member of the core committee of MBA programs at institutions like Pune University and NMU Jalgaon. He has held several positions which include being academic council member and chairman of board of studies and of curriculum design committee at Symbiosis International University, Pune. The list goes on and on. A prolific and multifarious academician, he has been the professor and director of corporate relations at Marathwada Mitra Mandal Group of Institutions and CEO at Investronaut Consulting. Presently, he is a CEO and Group Director at Samyadata Group of Institutes, Pune. We are extremely honored to have you here with us, sir. Over to you.
Very good morning to one and all. Am I clearly audible?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. At the outset, let me thank Jyoti Nivas College, the principal, the entire team for this opportunity to interact with accomplished academicians on this particular platform. I was just eagerly listening to the earlier speaker, wherein some aspects of Bloom's taxonomy and how the industry is looking into critical thinking and various other aspects were being discussed. So I think it lays a wonderful platform for this particular session, especially in the context of new education policy and the expectations that regulators, accreditors, and the society in general has from us. I'm sure institutes and colleges like yours are taking this particular national priority agenda ahead and this FDP is one of the small contributors in this long journey towards excellence. The topic which I have been assigned is about mapping the outcomes. So I'll very quickly share my PowerPoint and then commence with the session. Is this thing visible? The slide?
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. We'll be looking into the outcome-based education as a, I would say, the building blocks or the components of OBE, and then we will slightly deep dive into the CO mapping and the attainment level calculations. So that is what the broad thrust of my next 45 minutes of talk would be. So OBE, as we are aware, is outcomes based education, and we talk of outcomes which comprise of the entire ecosystem of outcome based education generally has three components. One, which is known as an outcome based curriculum. So in institutes or colleges which are affiliated, most of this stuff is done by the university. In an autonomous college, this is something that the board of studies and the academic council of the college is expected to do. And in that sense, the talk that was right now going on about what are the emerging horizon skills, what are the core skills or the hygiene level skills, all of that has to be mapped. So the connect with the industry in understanding how a particular domain, a particular discipline, a particular sector, a particular industry or the nation and the society at large is going to emerge, and what kind of demands it would place on academia and the learners, and therefore by implication on the teachers and the curriculum is very, very important. So that understanding in curriculum comes from being externally oriented. Having developed this curriculum, then I guess it is the responsibility of each and every teacher to teach in an outcome based teaching learning mode, which means the pedagogy or the andragogy has to go a fundamental transformation from what I know, what I teach, to I need to teach so that the student demonstrates certain behaviors or outcomes. And then this needs to be coupled with the outcome based assessment, wherein we talk of the two broad components of either a CCE or a CIE, the continuous comprehensive evaluation or continuous internal evaluation, and the end semester examination, or we talk of as says formative and summative assessment. So this trio together makes up the outcome based education, or these are the three legs of an outcome based education approach. And generally we talk of our graduates displaying certain KSAs or competencies. I use the word, how does my graduate look like, smell like, feel like? So it radiates certain qualities, and those qualities we talk of as graduate attributes. And some of these are very domain specific, and some of these are very, very generic. In fact, at several places where we conduct such workshops, the faculty are at the end of the day, they have a realization that yes, domain knowledge is important. However, a large majority of these graduate attributes go beyond domain and they cut across disciplines, and therefore we talk of the generic skills. So these days we are talking of 21st century skills also, so on and so forth. So all of these get captured in this particular concept of graduate attributes. So when we talk of mapping, we have to look at all the components of the outcomes. An outcome is basically a demonstrable performance, and this demonstrable performance actually as a ladder. At some stage, each stage there is a different kind of an outcome that we are speaking about. So if I look at a top down approach, that is I look at it from the dean's perspective or the academic council perspective or maybe a social perspective, we talk of PEOs, program educational outcomes, which are validated, which are measured, or we can kind of map them a few years after graduation. So again, in the earlier session, there was a question on critical thinking. So maybe we can map critical thinking or higher order Bloom's taxonomy to a certain extent in academia, but a large part of that, and especially the attitudinal and the values part, would figure out or would reveal or will manifest after maybe some years of professional work, contribution to his own, say, sector, discipline, business, entrepreneurship, bureaucracy, whatever the profession he or she chooses. When we talk of our students, we talk of a set of outcomes which we have to measure at the end of the program. So for a 2-year MBA, MCA program, it would be 4 semesters. For a bachelor's engineering, it would be after 8 semesters, and an architecture maybe 5 years or 10 years of 10 semesters. So we talk of program outcomes. So outcomes which should be measured and demonstrated by the student at the time of program completion, or we say graduation. So even in a postgraduate program, we use the term graduation. Then there are certain program specific outcomes which are related to the specific specialization. Say we have BE or all engineers demonstrating certain outcomes, but then B computer science would demonstrate a specific set of outcomes over and above the ones which all engineers would demonstrate. Say all managers demonstrate certain outcomes, and say MBA HR would demonstrate a specific set of outcomes. So these are about the specialization specific outcomes, and these go as a pair. So both of these would be at the time of program completion. We are all teachers, and we talk of various hats like facilitator, mentor, etc. But fundamentally, we can say that we all teach certain courses, certain subjects. So when we complete a particular course, we talk of COs. So these are to be measured at the end of the course completion. So this is something that kind of is the formal structure of outcome assessment. Several teachers also look at unit outcomes. So at the end of each unit, say your syllabus at Pune University, we have structured all curriculum under 5 units so that it helps us in the assessment structure and so on. So whatever the content of your syllabus, at the end of each unit, one can measure certain outcomes and one can progressively build the course outcomes. Likewise, some teachers are so meticulous that they would also quickly conduct a small assessment at the end of each class and then look at maybe through 5 MCQs or maybe some dipstick questions that has the class attained certain outcomes. So this you could do formally or informally, but then this is something that is actually the delivery or the transaction of the curriculum. So having understood the levels of the outcomes, let us look at the mapping. So the mapping generally would start from the topmost mapping, which every institute or department or university will have its own mission. So if you are a multidisciplinary institute, then you will have an institutional mission and you will have a college or departmental level mission. So we talk of identifying what are the key components of the mission. So it could be, say, academic excellence, it could be research, it could be application orientation, it could be, say, sustainability, social service, character building. So every institute has certain set of key highlights or focus areas of the mission. And then the logic of each mapping is that we take the next level in the hierarchy. So below the mission is the PEOs, and then we take up each PEO and say, okay, how does it contribute to this particular dimension of my mission? How does it contribute to the next dimension? And it is not necessary that it should contribute to each dimension. However, it should contribute to at least some parts. So we try and ask this question, and this could be done in a workshop mode with all the faculty, maybe some other stakeholders like recruiters, alumni, and even students and parents coming together. And we do a mapping wherein we try and say, okay, if some PEO does not contribute to a particular item in your mission, then I will label it as, say, no contribution. And others I would pick it, I would label as low contribution, average contribution, and maybe a higher or a maximum level of contribution. So this is the first set of mapping where we talk of weak correlation, average correlation, or contribution, and a strong correlation. Generally, when you talk of accrediting agencies like NBA and so on, or even in NAC these days, so in the first cycle, it is expected that you do this on a 1 to 3 scale, and maybe in the next cycle, it can go as high, it can be modified into a 1 to 5 scale. The idea in each mapping is to understand how our academic curriculum and structure really contributes to the final outcome that the college, university, department, whatever it is trying to achieve in a sustained and a consistent manner over a period of time. So having done this first mapping, this takes us to the next one, which with a similar logic, we are now mapping the next level in the hierarchy, which is the program outcomes and the PSOs, with the immediate higher level, which was the PEO. So the same logic we would apply and then ask the question, Now in the mapping, two things one has to remember. After doing the mapping, the first pass, I would say, the next question to be asked is, if I take the mapping of PO1 with all the 5 PEOs, after doing the first pass, I should really check, is this 3 really contributing more than these 2? Is this really not contributing? If it would have been a 1 over here, then is this really? So we have to do a relative prioritization once again across the POs horizontally. Then one can look further vertically also and check, when I have written 2, is this PO8 really contributing at a lower level to PEO1 as compared to say PO1? So having done this 3 iterations, I think the matrix generally evolves. In several workshops, I have seen faculty members to have a tendency to map everything to everything, which is not the case. So generally there will be blanks. There will be some points where there will be 0 or no contribution. The idea is that overall, all the POs should contribute to the PEOs, or all the PEOs should contribute to.
Hi, sir. Sorry, quite an elementary question. What is PO and could you
I,
just put some examples so it could make sense of what's happening? So sorry.
I'm getting an echo. Can you just repeat it?
Hear me, sir?
Yes, madam.
Sir, is it possible for you to give us an example with this so we can actually correlate what is happening? Because I'm
Sure.
stuck.
Just just a minute. Let me just go back. Just a minute. I can.
This is quite beneficial to us, sir. So if you could break it down for us, and it would help all of us when it comes to bringing the course outcomes for the department.
Madam, the audio is slightly unclear. What I understand is you want me to demonstrate with an example, right?
Which is the order.
Just give me a minute. I'm getting on the screen my data file, which has certain mappings.
Hi, sir. I was just
Yeah.
saying that this is quite beneficial for us as a department to build on course outcomes. So, with an example, I think it would be quite helpful.
Okay. There are 2 ways. I'm trying to dig into my database and find out the thing that we had done at our university. The second way could be, if you have your POs and POs, we can do a live mapping over here. I'm open to any of the options. Okay, so just give me a minute. I'm just digging into my thing to find
All
out.
right, no problem. Thank you.
Just to save on time, what I will do is I will just complete this small piece, and by that time my file will also be retrieved. Okay, just I will come back to the example. Give me a moment.
All right, no problem, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, so we'll come back to the real world example of this. That's the idea over here, to map the next level to the immediate higher level. Now, likewise, now you see over here, likewise, we map the course outcomes. So each course outcome. So if your course has say 4 semesters, and each semester you have 8 subjects or 8 courses, which means you will have 32 courses in all. Now, assuming that each course has all the 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy, you will have 32 into 6. So 180 and 192 course outcomes over the entire life cycle of your curriculum of one particular degree. So all these 192 outcomes are to be listed here, and then all the program outcomes are to be documented horizontally. So I have given an example which talks of say course outcome for course in semester 1, and this is the 5th course in semester 1, and point 1 is our first CO, which is related to the first level of the Bloom's taxonomy. And then we have documented the syllabus which says the 6th is point 6. So each course is having these 6 course outcomes. And we then ask the same question in terms of how does this contribute to a particular PO. Now, the point that we need to note is there could be certain POs. If I do all the 192 course outcomes here, then there are certain POs to which no CO is contributing. You see this column I have highlighted. So this is a column which is not getting any input from any of the 192 COs, which means there are two possible ways of going ahead. One, this PO has to be dropped. But if this PO is having very significant contribution to PEOs, then we cannot drop the PO. Otherwise, the relevant PEO will also have to be dropped. So what this indicates, the second outcome, and which is the most probable outcome, is that courses need to be added which feed into a PO. Unless there are course outcomes which contribute to a PO, this PO will never be attained. So this is where we identify curriculum gaps. This is where we identify weak POs. Likewise, there could be course outcomes which do not contribute to any PO, which means horizontally, if I look at it, it will not have any value over here. So forget these two and this one too. So if I have a course outcome which does not contribute to any of the POs, what it tells me is this course outcome is redundant. It is superfluous. It is not contributing to my program outcomes. It could also mean that our COs and POs are not really well defined. They are not very crystal clear. So these are the three levels of mapping that we talk of in terms of the uh, vision mission, PEO to vision mission, PO to PEO, and CO to PO. So this is the one-time activity that one has to do once the curriculum is reframed or revised. Till the time that the curriculum is again revised, the mapping of this particular thing is not going to change. Now let us look at, okay, let me find out if I have the file here. Okay. Okay, by the time the file is retrieved. Okay, so having done that, now we look at the other approach, which is the teacher approach. So how does a teacher look at this in the classroom? So which is about attainment level calculation at the lowest rung. So the lowest rung is the CO, the next one is the PO, the third one is the PO, and the fourth one is the mission. So we are at the lowest rung, which is CO attainment. Then you have the PO attainment, then you have the PEO attainment, and finally the mission. Okay, so that's the hierarchy over here. So when I look at it in the classroom, you see my assessment is formative and summative. So CCE and ESE. Further, I will have certain items or certain components within the assessment. So whenever I take any assessment, we have certain questions. Now question here is a generic term. It could be MCQ, it could be case, it could be project, case study, whatever it is. So the question that we use in any formative or summative assessment has to be mapped to a CO. And then the question is also based on certain content of the syllabus, which will come from certain unit. So every question has a two-way mapping. One is it will come from a unit, say unit 1.2, and this question may belong to say certain CO, which itself is a part of a Bloom's taxonomy. So you have a question which is on say applying. So that would relate to a particular CO over here. So questions, units and COs together are mapped, and that is the structure that the teacher has to create when he or she is creating her unit test or assignment or end semester examination paper. So we talk of questions getting mapped to units, units getting mapped to COs. So indicate interrelationship is established between these as well. And then we have already looked at this particular thing. So this part is happening in the classroom, and this part is the mapping that we have done in the earlier stages. So the attainment level input is actually happening through what activities, what assessments, what evaluations the teacher is conducting. That's where the input is happening. So this is an example of the full hierarchy. So I'll just quickly explain this once again. So you have the mission. The mission is getting mapped to the next level at 3210 level, which is the PEOs. The PEOs get mapped to the next lower level, which are my POs. And you have certain PSOs as well. Both are at the same level or the same hierarchy. The POs get mapped to the COs. The COs are now measured using two components. Now this is where all the teachers have to pay attention in this part. Okay, so the earlier part is generally departmental level, dean level, HOD level activity. Now here, every outcome is measured. Even these outcomes, the earlier ones, will be measured in two ways. So an outcome measurement has a direct attainment component and an indirect attainment component. So direct attainment is linked to performance of the students, and indirect attainment is linked to the perception of the student. So direct attainment further, we generally will split into formative and summative. Then each formative assessment will have certain CCEs, CCE1, CCE2, CCE3, like that. And your end semester question paper will have questions related to the 6 COs. So CO1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this is the structure of how assessment will get mapped to the particular outcome. And then, as I have said over here, the units form the basis of forming the questions. One needs to understand that questions will come from different units and get mapped to one particular course outcome. Let me take this ahead now. So this is a standard chart. All of you will get it through Google as well. So Bloom's taxonomy and action, verbs and activities. So when we frame the questions and the teaching learning methods. So these are the various teaching learning methods and teaching aids, and these are the various questions which are all about Bloom's taxonomy level 1, which is remember. These could be the various teaching learning methods and assessment methods for the next Bloom's taxonomy level understand. Likewise for apply, likewise for analyze, likewise for evaluate, and likewise for create. So the framing of the questions is fundamentally very important in the outcome based education activity or assessment. Right, just a minute. Okay. So then we talk of direct attainment level. So if you are conducting your direct attainment or measuring your direct attainment, then remember the direct attainment has two components. One is performance and second is proportion. So the proportion component is common in direct as well as indirect attainment. So if I have conducted a class test and I say that if 70% of the class scores 70% marks in my test, then I define my attainment level as 3. I hold generally the performance barrier or the performance bar constant, and I reduce the proportion of the class. So if only 60% of the class scores 70%, my attainment level is 2. Likewise, if it drops further, my attainment level is 1. And if it is less than 50%, my attainment level for that particular CCE, say unit test 1, is say 0. Now, the question generally arises is, should these proportions and should these bars be uniform across the entire courses in a particular semester or in a particular program? The answer is ideally yes, but you can definitely make certain variations in terms of the difficulty level of the subject or the nature of the subject and the nature of your class composition. The idea would be broadly to start uniformly in the first cycle, and when we do a year-on-year comparison, when we review the attainment levels, then with some justification, one can change the benchmarks and the proportions. But ideally, when we start, we should start with the uniform attainment levels and proportions at stage 1. So this is direct attainment level for say CCE1. Likewise, if you conduct one more CCE, you will calculate this and then it will start building up. The same logic we will use for university or NSEM or the summative examination. So this gives us a direct attainment component of the CO measurement. So if you use a 5-point scale, then this could be a sample that one can use for. So in the next level or the next cycle of any accreditation, one can move from a 3-point scale to a 5-point scale over here. Now we look at indirect attainment. So indirect attainment, as I said earlier, proportion is constant. Then we talk of feedback. So we are talking of course attainment level. So I will conduct a course exit survey. What is the course exit survey? The course exit survey is not a question about how well I have taught. The course exit survey is asking the students or seeking feedback from the students. Did the course help them to achieve the stated course outcomes? So all the course outcomes in effect become a opinion statement. So to what extent did this course help you achieve? And then the outcome one is stated over there. So we conduct a feedback which is known as a course exit survey, and we utilize some logic where if I'm using a 1 to 5 scale, I can pick the benchmark as 4. So I can say that at least 70% of the class should mark or state a level of 4 or above, that is 4 or 5. In that case, my attainment level would be 3. Then you drop the proportion, retain the performance, and then drop the attainment level. So the same logic as the earlier direct attainment. The only difference being direct attainment is measured by student performance, whereas indirect attainment is based on feedback. So then we get the broad equation. So here you see the weightage given to direct attainment is 80%. So 80% of direct attainment level plus 20% of the indirect attainment level. So for 6 Bloom's taxonomies, we created a question which has 2 questions per level of taxonomy or per CO, and we ended up with 12 questions. You might skip the second half and you might simply have 6 questions, 1 per CO. So this is having 20% weightage. So this is how, having achieved the direct attainment and the course exit survey, I calculate the CO attainment level for a particular CO. Likewise, I do it for all the COs in my course. Likewise, all teachers in a semester will do it for all their courses. So now if I go back and look at the contribution of the CO to the PO, if I have calculated the attainment level of all these COs, then some piece of what is getting into PO1 has been calculated, some fraction. Some fraction of what is getting into PO4 has been calculated. Some fraction of what is getting into PO8 has been calculated. Likewise, all course teacher have done in semester 1. So if for a 4 semester course, 25% of my PO attainment has been calculated at the end of semester 1. Okay, so this is our curriculum over here. I will quickly take one example. I will take this PEO. So you have 5 PEOs over here. Okay, so the live example. So I will just take these 5 PEOs. I'll paste them over here. And we have the POs. So let me take one particular PO. I will take a generic one just to ensure that we can cater to everyone. So I've just taken a PO called leadership and teamwork. So here is my PO of leadership and teamwork. Now this is my PO. OK, so we are talking of mapping the PO to the next higher level, which is PEO. Is my word file visible to all of you? Is the word file visible? It's visible, sir. So these are my 5 PEOs. I'm just quickly creating a live table for you all over here. So these are my 5 PEOs and this is my PO. Okay, so leadership and teamwork. Now the question that we need to ask is, what is the PO saying? The ability to collaborate. So a keyword over here is to collaborate. Okay, in an organizational context, since we are talking of business managers, we are talking of organizational context and across organizational boundaries. So we will talk of vendors, regulators, other stakeholders, and lead themselves, okay, and others. So I have to lead myself and others in the achievement of organizational goals and optimize outcomes for all stakeholders. So these are in a way the keywords. Now the question that I will ask is, if I read this PO and I go back to the PEO one over here, one step at a time. So I say, okay, how, to what extent does leadership, let me just paste this up so that it is visible. I ask, to what extent does leadership and teamwork contribute to this PEO? Okay, so the what is the PO? The graduates of MBA program will successfully integrate core cross-functional interdisciplinary aspects of theories, model, frameworks with real world practices. Okay, so they will integrate, then they will integrate with real world practices, sector specific nuances, and provide solutions to real world businesses, policy and social issues in a dynamic and complex world. So I will highlight these words. I will not really do a mapping right away. Then we say graduates of the MBA program will possess excellent communication skills, cross-functional, multidisciplinary cultural teams, and appreciation for local, domestic, and global context. Now, just let us take only these two. Between PEO1, which I will highlight in a separate color, and PEO2, if you all read, which which PEO does this statement contribute more? To which statement or which PEO does this statement contribute more? Does it contribute more here, or does it contribute more to the next one? Here. What is your view? Are you all with me?
Yes, sir. I think a few of us are saying one.
Sorry.
One. PEO1 kind of relates to the leadership and teamwork aspect of it.
Okay. Any other view? Yes. Any other view?
Many have said one, sir. Some have mentioned two in the chat box.
Yeah. Let us have a quick poll in the chat box. Both, second. Okay. If I were in your place, I will possibly rate PEO2 as a higher level, because this is talking more of a, look at these aspects: multidisciplinary, multicultural, local, domestic, continuity, change, risk, ambiguity. Right. So I would put that maybe as higher level.
So, but end of the day, it has to, all your feelings and your fears have to relate to each other. Not all of them, but they have to correlate.
No, I said most POs will contribute to several POs. There will be places where there will be no contribution. So I will go back again to this example on the screen. If you see now, value centered leadership decision making, this is one part over here, again important. Okay, then you look at non-profit corporate. So in this case, where is it? It is possibly contributing the least to maybe PO5. Okay, least. I'm not saying so. This is a generic term, right? Leadership and teamwork. If I pick another PO here, something like this, generic and domain knowledge. If I pick this, you realize that it does not contribute to many POs. The one that we have chosen is contributing to several POs, but this one will not contribute to many POs. So the point is, all POs need not contribute to all POs. Likewise, all COs need not contribute to all POs. It's a long drawn exercise. We do this 1 day workshop, and only then the iterations and all the, I would say this is like a Delphi technique. in live, where all participants will then arrive at a consensus. So this mapping has to be done rigorously, and it has to be done twice, thrice over, with all stakeholders being engaged, and counterpoints and points Y0, Y2, Y1, Y3. All those discussions, animated discussions, debates, intellectual fights should happen actually in the workshop. Only then the entire team will digest this and accept it. So the commitment would be there in that sense. Shall I move on? Because this itself is a long exercise.
Yes, sir, this was helpful. I think it made a little more sense to us. Thanks so much, sir.
So having identified this, now what happens? So we looked at 80%, 20%. Now I am deep diving into 80%. So what is this 80% here again? So I talk of this CO attainment, direct attainment and indirect. Sorry, I lost. So this 80% now I'm deep diving into it. So 80% is my 40% in CCE, 40% in 50% of 80% is my end semester. So this is my CCE1. So suppose a teacher is taking 3 CCs. So these 3 CCs together should get mapped to all COs: CO1, CO2, CO3, CO4, CO5 and CO6. So my internal assessment should ensure that I tick mark all the COs. If I do not measure any CO, my internal assessment is lopsided, or it is not comprehensive in that sense. So that's why it is concurrent comprehensive evaluation. Actually, the word should be concurrent comprehensive assessment. The difference between assessment and evaluation being that assessment is always for coaching, mentoring and improvement, whereas evaluation is for giving a grade. Personally, I don't like the term concurrent internal evaluation. Internal gives a sense that it is slightly diluted. This term is better: concurrent comprehensive evaluation. So we look at the CCs which a course teacher is conducting as the course is progressing, and the course teacher ensures that you cover all the COs. Now I am digging deeper only into the CCs. So only 40% of our direct attainment or the total attainment we are discussing. So CCE1 I have mapped to CO1 and CO2. CCE2 I have mapped to CO2, CO3 and CO4, and CCE3 I have mapped to CO5 and CO6. All the CCs I have kept at 25 marks. It's your choice. You can have any combination and then scale it down to the total. CO1 has question 1 of 10 marks. CO1 again has a question 1 of 5 marks, and CO2 has a question 2 of 10 marks. So collectively, these are my 25 marks of my CC1. In CCE2, I have a 10 mark question mapped to CO2. I have a 5 mark question mapped to CO3. I have a 10 mark question mapped to CO4. Again, total is my 25 over here. Okay. CO5, 5 marks here, 5 marks here, 15 marks here. So when I look at the entire subject across the semester, this is my marks distribution. So I have assessed CO1 for 15 marks, CO2 for 20 marks, CO3 for 5, CO4 for 10, CO5 for 10, and CO6 for 15. So this is my 75 marks breakup. Ideally, a course teacher should prepare this entire structure before starting the sessions, during the course plan or the session plan, whatever it is. So the concurrent assessment pattern has to be decided in advance. Now let us look at how the mapping or attainment level is happening. So this is my performance of all the students, a simple Excel sheet, all students over here. Question 1 map to CCE of this marks, question 2 this marks. So both of these together is my CO1. So when I look at this, my CO1, my attainment level is what? Target is 70% of 15. Why 15? Total this is 15. So my target is 70% of 15, that is 10.5. Then I look at all the scores here, total them, and then I say what is the achievement level. So if it is exceeding 70, my attainment level is 3 for this particular CO1. Now I look at CO2. So CO2 here is taking partly from CCE1. So although I complete my CCE1, I cannot calculate CO2 because partly the marks for CO2 are coming from CCE2. So after doing both the CCs, I get both 20 marks for my CO2. Again, I say 70% of 20, The target is 14, and I understand that when I look at this data over here, scores of all the students, 65% students have met a target of 70. So my attainment level is 2. Then I progress ahead. CCE2 gives me the marks for CO3 and CO4. So individually I will look at this. Again, I will look at this. Target 70% of 5, 3.5. 80% students achieved it. Attainment level 3. Target 70% of 10, that is 7. 73% attained it, which is more than 70%. Target attainment level is 3. Likewise for CO5, these two taken together, say the attainment level is only 58% did it. So the attainment level is 1. And the higher order CO, last topmost level, only 45% could do it. My attainment level is 0. So this is the way I will evaluate or calculate the attainment level for my concurrent assessment. Is this piece clear? Any questions? Understanding this part?
Yes, sir. This is clear.
Okay, thank you.
We'll take up the questions later on. We will cover the content, sir. The time or would you like questions now? So you can
Now
go ahead, sir.
I will quickly wind up if we are running short of time. So the same logic we do with the external assessment or all the COs, we get the balance 40%. So this is my external or end semester assessment. We do that. So I have 80% with, I have my 20% at the course exit feedback. So this gives me the attainment level in this manner. So 40% for mid sem concurrent or formative, 40% for summative, for 20% for indirect. I calculate my attainment levels for all the COs. So this is the job of the course teachers done here. Then we also create rubrics. I'll skip this for want of time. Now this gives us the full map. So understand the focus PO is PO2 across the semesters from semester 1 to semester 4. These are the courses which are contributing or getting mapped to PO2, and these are the levels 3, 2, 1, 0 at which they are getting mapped. Obviously the 0 ones are not relevant for us. So we find that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 COs across the entire curriculum which are contributing to PO2. Now having calculated the attainment level of PO 105.2, then I say if it is level 3, then the contribution is 100%. If it is at level 2 out of 3, the contribution is 66.6%. If it is at level 1, the contribution is 33%. So all CO contribution to PO can be calculated and it has to be averaged out. Likewise, at the end of the program, I am going to conduct a program exit survey. So I will get indirect attainment level for question number 2 of my program exit survey. That will be my 20%. So this 80% plus this 20% gives me the entire measurement of PO2. Likewise, at the end of once a batch is passed out, for all the courses, all the semesters, we will have the direct and indirect measurement for all the POs. I get, or the dean or the HOD or whoever is responsible will get the PO attainment level. Maybe 3 or 5 years down the line, depending on the frequency one has decided, one does a career progression survey. So we talk of how our graduates are looking at when they work in the industry. So career progression survey. This will be based on the PEOs. So the questions for career progression survey are based on PEOs. The questions for program exit survey are based on POs and PSOs, and the questions for course exit survey are based on course outcomes. So now again, once the POs are calculated, we have got 80% of the measurement of PEOs, and then 20% will come from progression survey that gets added, and we get the PEO attainment level. So this is the full picture. This slide captures the full picture of what we are trying to do over here, right from the topmost level, that is the PEO calculation, to what is happening in the class. So at the bottom right hand corner, you see what's happening in the class at the course teacher level. And thereafter, once the COs are calculated, then this is the mapping that one has to kind of identify and then do the mathematical calculations. All of this will generally result in this kind of a thing. So we talk of CO attainment here, contributing to PO attainment here, and then getting added through with the indirect survey and the PO attainment contributing to the direct PO attainment. And then we talk of indirect alumni and recruiter survey over here. So these are the three levels in which the attainment levels get calculated. Now the work doesn't stop here. Then we say the PDCA cycle typically. So having identified the check, so these are our checklist, right? So this is the check stage that the attainment levels have been calculated. Now what next? How do I improve each of these year on year consistently? So do I need to refine and strengthen the CO? Do I need to refine and strengthen the PO? So CO can be strengthened by adding units. A PO can be strengthened by refining the courses. Do I need to do inputs beyond the curriculum? Or if there are weak learners which are dragging my CO attainment level, do I need to do bridge and remedial courses? Or do I need to change my teaching methodology or assessment or evaluation? So I can take several corrective actions, some at the policy level, BOS academic level, some at the course teacher level, and then the cycle would start again. So having done this, there could be some implications for the right hand side, which is the plan, attainment level, whether they are targeted, etc. And then you execute and again you check. So the PDCA cycle would go on, and eventually these levels should shoot up to the desired benchmark. So I think that's what I had to cover. At this stage, I will take a pause and take up questions if any. It's a long drawn out topic. A 1 day workshop at your end should be done. Then if at all it will give you a grip on everything.
Hi, so definitely, I think we all need a 1 day workshop or more to really break these things down. And I think with your expertise, we can definitely build our syllabus much better than what it is presently. Um, a question that was raised is at the level of the C. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. One of the questions raised is who should be the stakeholders at the COE, at the CO, PO, PEO, and the mission. Mission, obviously, it is the institution, but the involvement of beyond faculty and is there anybody else that we should actually engage with to actually build uh, the CO, PO, POE, and the mission?
Yes. I will break this into two dimensions. One is formulating the things itself. So formulating your PEO, PO, PSO, and CO. This should be done in a widely consultative manner with not only your entire internal faculty should be there, right from top academic leadership to the lowest rung, plus maybe expert academicians, some of your alumni, some of your visiting or adjunct faculty. If there are any evaluators that you generally onboard, which are beyond your team, then they should be on board. So it should be a multi-stakeholder initiative. That is the defining. I would ideally advise, given that we are all short of time, this doesn't really happen. But then ideally what you should do is the drafting team and the auditing team or the evaluation team can be different. So small subset of your drafting team can be a part of evaluation along with few other experts who are not in the drafting process. And then you can really take the feedback in terms of clarity, in terms of comprehensiveness, in terms of appropriateness, in terms of contemporariness. All of this should be done. So that's the drafting part. Now, then the mapping. So mapping, as I said, should be team-based activity where I put multidisciplinary cross-functional teams of my own faculty and visiting adjunct. Here you may not have students or maybe some alumni if they are academically inclined. Yes, you may have some external experts. So you need to do the mapping. And again, you need to go back to the drawing board and check, does the mapping call for any refinement in my PO, POCO? So that should be the way, at least initially, things should be set up. This will give a very common understanding of what we are saying. So as you saw in the quick example, that each PO, we picked up one PO and looked at 5 POs, and each one of us will have different views and very convincing answers why it should be 3, 2, 1 or 0. So doing this in a consultative manner, I think helps. So involve everyone at the drafting stage, at the mapping stage, your own faculty, a couple of alumni, and you should visit.
Yeah, I think the need to be democratic in this process is quite essential because all of us will bring in our own inputs.
Absolutely.
Another, yes, sir. Um, I think with us, there is a constant emphasis on the direct attainment aspect of it. And I think we struggle with the indirect attainment, that is the feedback, and that is 5 years later getting information from students to see where they have progressed
Right.
educationally as well as professionally. Is there something that we can actually do to improve that aspect of it, sir?
Madam, what good institutes do is have this in the course plan or the session plan. So that's why I said I had highlighted two aspects: unit outcomes and the session outcomes. So good teachers actually have a very quick, so you can these days with technology and apps, you can have a quick 5 question MCQ at the end of every class, which students can put in, right? And the end of every unit, you can have a quick feedback about the course outcome. So in the course plan or in the session plan of the 45 hours or 35 hours, whatever has been allocated, after each unit, there should be a feedback. And at the end of the course, you should mandatorily have a feedback. So it is more about building an institutional culture in this particular way. I have seen institutions doing this very, very rigorously to the extent that it becomes boring. But let me say that boring is something that gives us a lot of data. Unless you measure, you cannot improve. One cannot go by our impressions, no matter how much experts or how much years of experience we are having. It is about the students' feedback. That's fundamental.
It's also, I think, to me at least, it's a struggle getting feedback because our class ranks are quite high. But again, the more prestigious institutions, the numbers are quite lower. So I think
Do it digitally. Do it digitally.
digitally. Okay.
Tag it to
Uh-huh.
the declaration of their concurrent assessments. So if your
Mm.
feedback is not received, if you are using an ERP, just block it. He cannot see the result or she cannot see the result. Okay.
Okay.
So this is something which culturally you will have to build it over a period of time.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a question: mapping in the beginning will be more helpful to achieve desired outcomes.
Absolutely.
Is that, yeah? I think that is something we all have to do.
All the mappings, plus you should also ideally develop during the vacations the question banks according to Bloom's taxonomy. You should do, we did not touch upon rubrics for the want of time. Should develop common rubrics across the department. Suppose a case study or simple, you want to evaluate a presentation. What should be the rubrics? What should be the criteria? Would you emphasize more on body language or content? Would you emphasize more on real world examples or academic theory? That is where your institutional mission will come into picture. If you want to create more entrepreneurs, you may not really look much at theory. If you want to create more researchers, you may look at theory. So rubrics are to be created, question banks are to be created, mapping has to be done, and all this will be kind of your manuals or Bibles or Gita, whatever you pick and choose, that will be there for you for lifelong.
This is Karnataka being the experimental ground for NEP. It's the question arising from that. With NEP, syllabus or the curricula is given to us from higher authorities like syllabus committee. If syllabus do not have higher level learning aspects, what can a teaching institution do? So again, where is the aspect of democracy that comes?
Yes.
Where is the stakeholders involved? Then how can we expect higher level outcomes if clearly none of us are involved in the creation of syllabus?
Two quick responses. One, assume that you are not involved and you will not be involved. That doesn't mean that we cannot do anything. The simple thing is supplement the COs with higher order. So you add supplementary COs and all the inputs beyond the curriculum can be targeted towards those COs. So we conduct seminars, we conduct workshops, we conduct conferences, we give certain projects. So all of that are inputs beyond the curriculum, which means that is not stipulated by your BOS or university.
Mhm.
And in that case, all your activities, which are the co-curricular. In fact, in NEP, there is nothing like co-curricular, extracurricular. That distinction has gone. But whatever you do, which is beyond that 100 credits or 40 credits or 60 credits of the course, all of that can be targeted towards the outcomes that you have now supplemented, which are the higher two orders outcomes. So that is where you will distinguish, or any institute distinguishes itself from the other institutes.
That's true,
Second,
sir. But again, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, please, you go ahead.
No, no, I'm just saying that end of the day, the students, because their involvement in these other activities are quite limited. So it, especially when it comes to classes, you dissect certain concepts from the very beginning, and then you build on it over semesters or over classes. And I think that is something that we would be missing in a co-curricular activity, because it's the involvement of many people without really building foundations.
I slightly beg to differ. Two quick points, just completing my earlier point. Second, in NAC and NBA also, there are various initiatives like, do you like, this is organized by your IQAC, right? So in criteria
Yeah.
one, there is a feedback 1.4, I guess. And then do you communicate this feedback to your board of studies and academic council? I think yours being an autonomous college, the gap will be lesser as compared to an affiliated college. That was my first and short point. Second, learning happens not only in the classroom, rather increasingly less and less learning happens in the classroom. Can faculty members come together and join hands to create interesting projects which cut across courses? So today we are short of time, but sometime later maybe I can share with you how faculty members can create a project which captures COs from multiple courses, and then learning becomes fun and the engagement of the student also goes up. So yes, there are challenges. I'm not saying that there are no challenges, but there are ways to dent the problem, may not resolve the problem entirely. Okay, so one cannot take it as given and say there is not much that we can do. That's my short and brief point about this particular aspect.
All right, sir. Um, yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for, I think this was quite helpful to us, and I think it just put a little worm into our heads to actually build on our syllabus and where to start and where to direct ourselves. And I definitely think we need a longer, maybe a day or two workshop with you, so that we can actually brainstorm with you and see what we can improve with our syllabus, and if it's possible
Absolutely.
with the institution, and at your convenience, we'd happily have you over physically or online, whatever is convenient.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
On behalf of JNC and the principal, Dr. Sister Lalita Thomas, we are very grateful for your enlightening session today, and we hope to see you soon and with a more comprehensive, and also where we actually are all involved uh, in whatever matter, and how much little contributions that can be that we can make ourselves in building the syllabus, and for ourselves and for the students and for the institution. Quite relevant these topics have been, sir, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much again, sir, and
Thank you.
have a good day.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Yeah. And for the audience who is here, the feedback form is put up on